Hello, we're looking back at the project again. So from the last video we should have something similar to this. So a chart which is just breaking down all the different components of the task. Notice the size of it. It doesn't go into ridiculous depth. It's not breaking down every single line of code. It's not taking every single loop or selection. It's just breaking down where the different tasks are being done. This isn't just a sample. This is the entire structure chart for a GCSE level project. I've seen some students try to make these which have hundreds of blocks. It's really not necessary. This is about the size which you're aiming for. Once you've created this and you've got all the different sections and you know what will go into each one, then you can start doing flowcharts for each one. Now you may have seen a flowchart before. It has various different aspects, so it will have a blob for a start. It will then have an arrow going down, and it may have a square. It may have a diamond. If it has a diamond, the diamond will probably have a yes and a no coming off of it. And then you may have more blocks, and some of them may go back to the beginning, and then you may have a finish at the bottom. This sort of thing is a flowchart, and this is going through all the process of either an entire program, or in this case a part of the program. So this, for example, could be looking at how to decompress the RLE. So it's really useful just taking an individual section and then trying to create a flowchart which goes through how to solve that individual aspect of the program. So you'd be looking at this example, which is just decompressing the RLE, and it will be passing in the RLE expecting to get back plain text. So we can have a look at what sort of methods we will use to do this. You can also make flowcharts on a website such as draw.io, and so we can create a new diagram. Just create a blank diagram, and then we can start creating with the different blocks and typing into the boxes, and it makes a very nice diagram. For the actual design, I wouldn't do it online. When I'm actually going through the thought process, I use pen and paper, because it's an awful lot easier to think about things, to go through the thought process. Doing it on the computer is really nice for the presentation and to make things look good. It's not so good for brainstorming and editing ideas and all the rest. Pen and paper is a lot nicer. So I'm just going through creating a flowchart for the function to convert RLE into normal text. So yes, I have figured this out beforehand on pen and paper. You're welcome to see if you can follow along the actual code. However, it's not for the project which you're working on, so it's a good exercise but not mandatory. It is quite useful, as in most of the GCSEs have run length encoding on it, So it's certainly not going to be a wasted effort. So what I'm doing is I'm creating the result is going to be what the final answer is, and that's just going to be an empty string to start with because we've not got anything else created. And we're creating the index, that's where on the RLE it's looking. Then we're just creating a count, which is going to be the word, which is whatever's coming in the RLE at position index. So that's going to start at 0. So the 0th character in word, it could well be something like 8D5E. So in that case, the 0th item is 8. So that would go into count. And then word index plus 1. So if index is 0, index plus 1 is D. So letter would be D. So the result will be the result plus count times letter. So we're going to times the count and letter together, i.e. 8 Ds. And in Python you can just multiply a string by an integer and it will just do 8 Ds, which is really nice and easy, makes it so much easier to get this function working. And then after we've done that, we want to make sure that the index goes up, not just by 1. We want the index, it was 0, to then go to 2. So we're adding 2 to the index each time. Okay, once we've done that, we've then got to make a decision. Have we finished? So we can check if the index is less than the length of the word which we got coming in. If it is, then we want to go back up here. If it isn't, then we want to finish. And that's pretty much the completed flowchart for that one section. Now for your project, I would recommend, there we go. That is a completed flowchart for that part of the project. I just need to add in labels on that. So is index, if that's a yes, then that's going there. If it's a no, then it's going down. There we go. So we've got some of the different blocks. We've got the Terminator blocks, so just for the start and finish. We've got process blocks. We've got diamonds. Diamonds are to make decisions, so generally yes or no, but could be whatever. Wonky rectangles, or parallelograms, are for input-output. So if you're asking the user something or telling the user something, you'll need one of these, or writing something to a file. Everything else is going to be in a square. They're process, but essentially everything else. So hopefully you can make a flowchart for some of the more complex sections of your code, but also the idea of this is to highlight that this is where we're getting down into the intricacies of what are we doing, what are we multiplying, what are we adding, what are we comparing, whereas the structure chart is a lot higher level. It's just breaking down the problems, what are the different problems which we need to solve. And I really wouldn't want anything too much larger than this for the structure chart, because this is what then gets converted into the functions. Essentially, do you need a function in order to do this? If it's something which is just print or return, then no. You don't need arrows going back. It's not a flowchart. All it is breaking down what does enter RLE mean. It means get the RLE from the user and then decompress it. I don't need to say and then return or then go back to the main menu or anything like that, because the main menu is up here. It will just exit out of it, come back to here. That is part of the flow of the program. Okay, so I'd recommend making sure that your structure chart is sensible, and for some of the ones which don't seem trivial, trying to make a flowchart. And yes, use pen and paper. Once you've done this, you can save it. You can export it as an image to put into it, but also make sure you actually save it, because otherwise you find you made a mistake, try to go back and you can't edit an image. You'd have to actually edit it as a whatever format it is, .draw.io by the looks of it. Okay, hopefully that gives you something to work on. Give it a go.